Hi there! Happy National Novel Writing Month. My name is Andrew. I'm the author of The Divine Daughter, a non-fiction book. It is a deep dive into storytelling, mythology, psychology, and spirituality. The Madoc Library has a copy of the book. I also co-wrote a series of lesson plan books for teachers in social studies and in science. They're available through On the Mark Press. The Madoc Library gave me a list of questions about writing. We'll look at them first, and then after do something a little different. It's almost the end of November. After writing your story, what do you do next? I'll show you something that can easily help strengthen your writing and give you some control over editing options. But first, the questions. How did you get started writing? The Young Authors Program in school. I was able to find these in a box. Grade 3, The Missing Ring. Grade 5, The Black Archer. And Grade 6, Federation Assignment Mission Corlin. All sci-fi, superhero stuff. Big epic adventure. Even at that age, I knew I wanted to be a writer. I can remember even arguing a little bit with the teacher because the teacher wanted a picture, an illustration for each page, and I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to write. So by the end, by grade 6, I was able to only add maybe 3 or 4 pictures for the whole story. I was just a writer. What inspires you? The imagination and puzzles and books. Deep problems about the human condition, like mystery and how we keep coming back to the unknown. And how do we face the unknown? What's the proper relationship to those things you just don't know? And what question are we not asking? What questions are people not exploring? Where do you get your ideas? Where or when? I have lost many a good hour of sleep trying to work out my ideas. I get stuck wondering whether I should just get up and write things down or whether I should lie there and think them through, which means more loss of sleep. I haven't really made peace with that yet. I'm still torn sometimes. I think one of the other authors in this series said it well, with ideas are everywhere, everywhere. The active mind will start picking up ideas when reading or listening to others or when bored. As soon as you can find a way to put two things next to each other and just see how they rub against each other and see if anything comes from it. While writing my nonfiction book, I found many insights and ideas would come once I'd settled into the routine of writing. And that can be incredibly motivating to have things connecting. Like it's almost like training a muscle. You're training your insights, you're training the process. And as a result, you end up having a little bit of trust. You can start to trust yourself and trust your intuition. So sometimes ideas just come from writing. What kind of research do you do before writing? Do you enjoy researching? How long do you spend doing it? Research depends a lot on the subject matter or project, I think. I found each book I used for research would reveal 4 or 5 other books that I should read for research. And then in turn, they would bring 4 or 5 more books for research. So there's kind of an ongoing process there that can lead into a lot of trouble. It takes a lot of time. To really master a subject, you have to dedicate your career to it. So you have to draw a line somewhere for yourself. And one of the most important things about research is the puzzle or the mystery. When the curiosity is activated, it seeks satisfaction. And so I've had to build a relationship with my curiosity and find those moments when I trusted that it was satisfied or not satisfied. If it's satisfied enough to say something meaningful, then you probably know, okay, I found a space that I can start to write. If you don't have anything to say, you need to be happy with what other people say, or you have to do more research on the subject. What does literary success look like to you? I really don't have any idea what success looks like. Many readers have read my book and then sent me reviews or sent me comments, and I'm surprised at how many times they're making their own connections. They're not necessarily taking the ideas from the book, but they're starting their own thought process. And that's enormously rewarding for me because it means a whole new side of conversations. I crave those conversations with my readers. In some ways, writing for others has become a literary success. So maybe literary success really means more writing. What is the most difficult part of your artistic process? Commitment, committing, finishing what I started, and not taking things too seriously, but still believing in myself. How long does it take to write a book? This totally depends on the project, of course. This book took me about a decade, although for the first couple of years I didn't even know I was writing a book. I was just organizing my thoughts. If I had really thought it through and committed to it earlier, I probably would have been able to shorten that time quite a bit. I would cut that time in half maybe. I have a fiction story that started as a few ideas back and forth with my wife. The vision of that story was very clear, and so that ended up taking not very much time at all. It probably has a lot to do with your vision for the story. If your vision is very clear, then the whole writing experience might be a lot better. And the timing might be a lot better too. At what point should someone call themselves a writer? As early as possible. Childhood. It helps. It really helps. But don't identify with the trappings of the label. Don't introduce yourself as like, I'm a writer. If you have to, say, I write. That way it's a verb. It's an action. You identify with the activities and the actions. Don't just say I'm a writer. Writers write. I write. What are the most important elements in good writing? For me, imagination, insight, and honesty. Even in nonfiction, I think you are trying to get the reader to suspend disbelief, trust you, peek over your shoulder. So creating a sense of perspective and investment, meaning and relationship, that's all going to count. And that often means telling your reader not what to think, but showing your reader, always showing your reader where to look or where you've looked. And kill your darlings. Darlings are not good writing unless you are your only audience. If that's all you're doing is you're just writing for yourself, have fun with it, doesn't matter. I tend to go really deep into associative thinking, and so I make a lot of connections and a lot of things go all over the place for me. But when it comes to actually communicating with somebody else, you got to kill your darlings. If you have a choice between your darlings and your reader, kill your darlings. What comes first for you, the characters or the plot, and why? Well, for many writers, the first step is to get the audience to fall in love with your characters and then put them through some kind of worst hell imaginable. So in that sense, I guess it would be characters. But sometimes the setting comes first because that can set all kinds of cues and tones for the audience. One of the first things that my wife and I did for the story that we're going to look at later, the first thing we did was draw a map, and that helped bring everything together as far as what the community was doing. Then again, I'm a fan of J.R.R. Tolkien, and Tolkien might say the first step is inventing an entire language for your characters, which ends up meaning really a whole long history and geography and mythology first. So there's room to be innovative. Whatever brings the spark. When it appears, turn your attention to the spark, and everything else will catch on fire after that. What are your favorite and least favorite parts of publishing? Most favorite, holding the book in my hand. Least favorite, the decisions, the pain in the ass typos that make it through all the editing stages because they stare at you from the page like some snotty-nosed kid that really gets on your nerves. And promoting the book. A lot of stuff after holding my book in my hands, I got very bored with, and I often feel like promotional stuff isn't authentic. So I got some advice from other writers that the best thing you can do to promote your book is not start a blog, it's not print postcards, it's not, get a booth at a writing event. The best thing you can do is write your next book. Writers write. What parts of your books are the most fun to write? In fiction, the characters can be really fun. You can add little quirks, you can humanize them, drop hidden things here or there so that people can relate to them a little more. I do like that. I didn't think rewriting or revisions or editing would be fun at all, but it can turn very addictive. It's almost like hunting for the perfect fix, and really working those fine details, that can become addictive. What do you need in your writing space to stay focused? Time. Lots of time. Stretches of uninterrupted time. Quiet, routine, patience. I need patience with myself. I used to write while listening to music, but I find the quiet space is wonderful now. Sometimes I need little jobs. I don't like doing chores. I'm not a big chore guy. But if I'm stuck, I may need to go wash dishes or make a simple recipe. It helps my mind work through something else. What is your schedule like when you're writing? All over the place. Often this is because of work for other clients and customers. If a customer needs something, I tend to put their work in front of my own. Mornings are great for writing though. The afternoon and evening I find are good for research, notes. If I have the wrong conversation with somebody though, it can really mess with my writing. I can lose days of writing just because I'm in somebody else's headspace. As a result, I can get a little antisocial when it comes to writing. But that's okay, because writing is important. What advice would you give to writers working on their first book? Don't lie to yourself. There are tools available, there's inspiration available, but ultimately it's going to come down to you and you finding the right fit for how you're going to write. So be brutally honest with yourself. My friend Sylvia was using a software program, a Scrivener I think it was. It looks wonderful, and it's an all-in-one environment that gives you notes and ideas and scheduling and organizing, all that stuff. So that's an option. You don't have to buy something though. Many people are familiar with word processors now, like Word or Google Docs. I'd suggest you find ways to use almost everything in those office-style software bundles. And here's what I mean. So a spreadsheet is usually for numbers, but a spreadsheet is actually really great for organizing any kind of lists. Say you want to list your characters. Say you want to list settings. Say you want to draw up genealogies for families. The spreadsheet can be very useful for those background things behind the book. Presentation software like Keynote or PowerPoint or Google Slides, they are wonderful for bulletin board or pin boards kind of thing. You can create a slide for a character, and that way you get a feel for the look, you get a feel for their reactions. You can collect images, and you can also get a sense of maybe some inspiration for settings even that way too, by collecting images of settings. All the more valuable is the flowcharts too. You can take shapes and you can draw out in a diagram form your entire plot. That way you get to see these sequences working through things, and it gives you that sort of ongoing record. So I'd say use all those if you can. In fact, I want to go a little further now, and I want to use one tool in particular. At first I didn't like this at all, but I've come over to seeing it's actually really valuable. That is Grammarly. Now, when I first started Grammarly, I didn't think it was that hot, but it's changed and it's improved, and there are some valuable things now for that editing process. I wanted professional editors to edit my book, and it did a world of good for me. but it was also very expensive. So I learned a lot from the editors. I learned a lot about my own writing and what I needed to change, but it was also a very expensive education. So when I came back to Grammarly, I realized I could have saved a lot of money when it came to editing. And maybe more importantly, I could have used that money on editors looking at deeper elements of my book, such as, say, structure, nuance, and all those things that would have really taken the book further on. So that's what I wanted to bring to you. I want to introduce you to Grammarly and see how it works. Now this might be quite an ego slap for me, but we'll take a first page of one of my stories and put it into Grammarly and see how many problems there are with it. I'll switch over now, turn the camera off, and go to the screen. Okay, I have logged into Grammarly. I have a couple of my other older files on the go here. I'm going to click on New. I'm going to add my title, The Dreamwell, page 1. Let's take a look at the screen here first. On the right hand side, we have an overall score, which Grammarly uses just as a general measure, some goals, which will show up in just a second, and then gives us some lists of suggestions when we type in some text, such as correctness, grammar correctness, clarity of the writing, engagement, how engaged it feels, and delivery. Again, these are suggestions. You may not agree with what Grammarly says, but at least it gives you in a sense that other voice to compare against. So I hope this isn't too big of a slap to my ego or anything, but I'm going to just take my draft and put it in here with pasting. Set goals. Do I want my audience to be general, knowledgeable, or expert? I'll say general because this is just a story. Formality, I'll say informal. It's quite an informal story. As far as domain, there's a little flag here that says go premium, so I'm just gonna avoid that. And tone. Do I want this to have a friendly tone or a joyful tone or analytical? For now, I'm gonna go with friendly, but again, this is experimental and it's not really important. Intent, and it's gonna be tell a story. Now, where are we? Okay, overall, what's happening here? It says an overall score of 86. That can get up to 99 and 100. I have 9 alerts. That's not looking good. We'll have to look at those. Clarity is clear. That's good. At least I got that going well. Engagement, a bit bland. Ooh, that hurts. But again, I can make some changes. And interestingly enough, delivery helps you make the right impression on your reader. I seem to be doing okay for delivery. So that could actually maybe take care of some of the engagement. In the premium Grammarly, there are other issues, but Grammarly's nice enough to actually highlight them for you too. So you can play with them a little bit and decide on what you want to do. Over here on the screen, we now have highlighted a couple of things, and once you click on something, it gives you a chance to edit as you go. The color is an example here of one of the correct alerts that has come up, the red alerts. The spelling of color is a non-American variant. For consistency, consider replacing it with the American English spelling. Because I'm in Canada right now, I'm going to say this is an incorrect suggestion, so I'm just going to ignore it, and it goes away. Again, paneled. Well, paneled is non-American variant, so again I can decide, well, I'm just not going to worry about that. But countertop, why didn't I just make that one word? Here's one good example maybe of style. In my sentence, I did want to use the word awful, just in an informal way, but a proper way may be to use something like awfully. Now, that being said, it's a choice, and some people may go for it differently, but for now I'm going to leave it there and I'm just going to keep it flagged. My overall score now has improved to 90, and if I wished, I could in fact go through all the yellows. Oh, look at that. There's still like 20 things I can do to fix this up. So let's read through this now and see if you like the story. The Dream Well, a children's story for grown-ups. In a house on a street there lived a girl. This was no cluttered, messy, dirty house with half-eaten grilled cheese sandwiches on the couch and a smell in the air like the cat left something icky in the corner. And it wasn't some tidy, organized, spotless house filled with furniture wrapped in plastic that creaks and crinkles when you sit down. It was her mom's house, and that made it home. Bumpy stucco covered the outside that had been painted brown long ago and recently repainted in the same color. 2 steps up from the ground, there was an ordinary wood porch in front of a perfectly boring door, just like every other door on every house on the street. The beige door had a dark doorknob just where you'd expect a doorknob would be. The door opened into a brown hallway, a very polite hallway with paneled walls and stained wood floor to match the walls. A rectangular mirror hung over the tidy hooks on the wall for coats. The hallway led to the kitchen, where white cabinets matched the white countertop. Dark brown ceramic tiles covered the floor. Through the sliding door at the back of the kitchen, you could see the backyard, which had a tall stained fence on either side but no fence at all at the back. If you kept walking through the backyard, you would eventually come to a little rise with trees and lots of tall grass. That was the hill. It wasn't always called the hill, but that's what the kids on the street called it now. This girl was an insistent little girl, and her name was Anna. The driveway next to the house was empty. Her dad's bright green truck was parked on the street in front and not very far from the yellow metal guard at the end of the road. The yellow paint matched the yellow galoshes her dad had given her on the drizzly wet day when Anna moved in with her mom. That was the word Dad used when he gave her the boots. Galoshes. Anna thought that was a funny word for boots. Anna insisted on wearing the boots every day. I mean, every day. She said they were for important work, like splashing in puddles, hiking up hills, and discovering things that changed her whole town of Sorrowboro. Past the end of the road, there was a field of uneven ground filled with reedy, pale weeds, tall thistles, and scrubby-looking chokecherry bushes. If you've seen a chokecherry bush, you know how scrubby-looking they can get. Across the street, the ground dipped down. Thick trees and bushes stood by the road, keeping everything underneath shaded and dark. Hardly any grass grew on that side. Anna did change her whole town, by the way. It took some work, and Anna had to be very insistent with some people, but she did it, with a little help from her friends, of course, and with something she found on the hill. Anna insists everything in her story happened over just 1 week. Her mom says everything took a lot more than a week. Sometimes it does take an awful long time to change things, especially people's minds. But this is really a story about Anna, so I'm going to tell you how things happened according to her. This story started on a Sunday. All right, there's my introduction to writing and my introduction to Grammarly. Use any tools that you find useful. Good luck, and I hope you write well.